You know, it seems like every time I do a video like this, I always say, all right, we'll revisit this in a couple of weeks, a week or two, and we'll see what the results are. And then every time, it's like, oh, you know what, I should do that video. How long has it been? Oh, it's been over a month. So here we are, back one final time with this Goon Squad series, as it is time to announce who you guys have voted in to the Hall of Fame for this series. Now, whenever that thought comes across, like, oh, it's been this long since I've done that episode, I always think, it's like, I want to do some kind of on-screen graphic or something, but then the thought comes up, that just makes the wait even longer. So I'm going to save the whole big graphic and presentation and such for the NHL 18 wrap-up. And I wanted to mention that because not only, of course, throughout these series do I want us to be able to look back at the big names of each series, but I'm thinking now, for the end of NHL 18, we'll have all of our Hall of Famers from each series, but from there, I'm thinking what we're going to do is have a first team and a second team, so to speak. Kind of like the NBA, and their first team and all that. So, weird comparison, I know, but still. So, at the end of the year, we have our Hall of Famers for our series, but then we can also say, all right, well, who was the best left way? Who were the best three forwards in general? Who were the best two defensemen? Who were the best two goaltenders? Or just flat out the best goaltender in NHL 18 for us, regardless of the series. And then we have the elite of the elite for NHL 18. So I think that'll be a fun way to look back at the end of this. But regardless, as far as who has made the Hall of Fame, this is the series in which we had the most nominees. A couple of strange suggestions that were shot down pretty heavily in the voting. But the reason why I brought up that idea of having, the first team, the second team, in terms of who the best of the best were for NHL 18, not just each individual series, is that we have 6 Hall of Fame nominees from the series, 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. So it works out quite perfectly. I won't waste too much time. I won't put too much hype in it. We are going to get right down to business here. Your Hall of Famers for this Goon Squad series. Some were predictable. Others, perhaps, not so much. I have to admit, out of all the forwards here, no Hall of Famers. Pandolfo, Castles, Geispers, they were up for the vote. Defensively, there might be one. Goaltenders, I mean, if you look down in the AHL, there might be one. Let's get right down to it. First off, with the forwards, and again, I'd love to be able to go back and try to find them or track them down. Most of them have retired at this point. Your front three, the 3 forwards that have made the Hall of Fame for this Goon Squad series. Anderson McDonald, one of the OG draft picks. Nolan Foote, another of the OG draft picks. And again, perhaps the best name we've ever had in a series. Your favorites, Marty Dick. McDonald, Foote, and Dick have made the Hall of Fame. Rightfully so. I would say I was a little bit surprised to see Anderson McDonald make it, but again, along with Nolan Foote, they were both from the first 2 drafts, and they were with us for basically their entire careers. Nolan Foote was Anderson McDonald, we ended up trading. And then Marty Dick was a part of one hell of a draft class. He was a long-time member of this team. Might not have put up the most points, but still a Hall of Famer. Rightfully so. I agree with your decision. That brings us to the 2 defensemen and the goaltenders, and look, you already know, Marcus Brodin is a Hall of Famer. Whether or not he is the best goaltender in the history of this channel, well, Thatcher Demko has some disagreements with that, I'm sure, from the Vancouver series. There are quite a few goaltenders from Rebuilding Hockeytown that disagree, and not to mention, I mean, this year isn't over with, it's April, but when we look at the end of the year voting, it's going to be a slugfest between Marcus Brodin and Jyrki Petrolainen for who was the best goaltender for us in NHL 18. But regardless, Brodin makes it to that next step. He is a Hall of Famer. And of course, Frederick McDonough, with the biggest landslide in voting history, if I'm not mistaken. I think only 4 people voted no just to be contrarian, and I can respect that. You knew Freddie was going to be a Hall of Famer, and again, we'll take a look at what stats we can for him. Of course, it's a shame that we can't move beyond, this point in this series. But again, Marcus Brodin, 39 years old at this point, a former 3rd overall pick, and just some of his better numbers aren't going to be shown here. But you look, actually, most of them might be. I think some are missing, actually. But you look at these numbers. Starting in the 25-26 season, and then pretty much really only getting better from there. He did not have an equal to or below 924 average for over a decade. It did not drop until the 2039-2040 season. That is the most sustained run of dominance we have ever seen. Multiple times closing in on a 940 save percentage and eclipsing that in 2026, 2027. Unreal. I wish in every series we could have Marcus Brodin. That is for sure. And then, of course, like I said, you knew he was going to be there. Still, perhaps the best draft pick. He probably is the best draft pick I'll ever have in a series. And at 40 years old, still being an 84, Frederick McDonough, the fact that we had no business getting him. No business getting Frederick McDonough for this series. But we got him. A penalty minute machine, but a defensive stalwart. Of course, the numbers started to drop at the 2036-37 season. Of course, once we started moving on from that core, that just continued to fail in the postseason. But McDonough is a Hall of Famer. The final member, the other defenseman, a former pairing with McDonough, that being one of the more underrated defensemen, or at least I thought one of the more underrated and underappreciated defensemen that we've ever had in this series. I've mentioned before, he's one of my favorites. You probably already know who it is, that being Sebastian Kress. So, like I said, as I'll give you guys one last look at the awards here, we have our 3 forwards, Anderson McDonald, Marty Dick, and Nolan Foote. On defense, Frederick McDonough and Sebastian Kress, Marcus Brodin in goal. When I talk about the idea of having that first team for NHL 18, the elite of the elite, how many of these 6 players will stay? How many of them will be in that team? Brodin and McDonough, nearly locks to at least be, McDonough's probably going to be first team. Brodin, depends on if he loses to Petrolainen. Kress, Foote, Dick, and McDonald, time will tell. They have some rough competition, but those 6, I can agree, are legends of this series. There might have been some people who missed out, but again, we'll have a second chance option towards the end of the year. So that is it. This series is finally over. I thank you guys for the support with it. And again, I look forward to the end of the year where we'll take a look at whether or not the Hall of Famers of this series have been amongst the elite for us in NHL 18. I'll catch you guys next time.